the last time I tell you, sit down, be quiet, and listen. Oh, hey, here to tell you about self-directed learning for classroom management. Now, what I just showed you was completely the opposite of student-directed learning. That instead was an authoritarian style, telling the kids what to do, when to do it, completely in control of everything that was going on in the classroom. And that is something that this theory is trying to get away from. So we will explore that right now. And by the way, I'm very excited. I'm in my classroom. I have my clicker for this year. We are going live in the classroom August 17th, so I will let you know how things go in terms of in-class learning. It should be interesting. But this is my empty classroom now. Makes me a little sad there's no students in it, but hopefully very soon. The picture that you see that way are 4 of my cherubs that surprised me during a freshman study hall. Those are seniors, so we did a quick selfie. Amazingly, that was just a few days before the whole COVID-19 situation. So I just thought I'd add that picture because I love it, and it shows some good enthusiasm. All right, so we're clicking. All right, so what does self-directed learning look like? Who knows? And I'm being honest with that. It was really hard to find an example of a good definition that was reliable. In other words, you were going to see that same definition in 5 different sources. They were all over the place. It's tough to define, but you know it when you see it. Now, that was also a quote by a Supreme Court justice talking about obscenity. You know it when you see it, but that's a whole different story. We won't get into that. Anyhow, you know self-directed classroom when you see it. And what I mean by that is you're walking past the classroom and you see students engaged in learning. And it's not the teacher standing up there behind a podium dictating information to the kids. The kids are frantically writing all that fun stuff, if you will. You know, and quite frankly, you start losing them after a while, and you can see it. Their eyes are glazed over. So, self-directed learning. Example here, this is a group of kids. My son is in the blue hoodie for the Fat Tuesday celebration, if you will. We had a school assembly in 2 of our gyms, and they set up a video game competition. Kids had to buy tickets to play it, and the proceeds went to charity, which was pretty cool. It was very self-directed in terms of what the kids had to do. So an example there for you. All right, we're clicking. So what can self-directed learning be? Well, it can be students determining their own topics to research, the timeline that they're working with, the sources they're using and researching, and even the assessment by which you evaluate them. Now, that is self-directed learning to its extreme. But it doesn't have to quite go that far, particularly if you're a newer teacher or if you have a classroom of kids that maybe isn't going to do so well if it's completely self-directed. All right, so we'll explain that. Let's move on. So self-directed learning can be ultimately giving students freedom to whatever degree they're capable of and to whatever level the teacher is capable of as well. So above me is a picture of us at a metal fabrication shop. We spent a day in our business class. I took 60 students to see a metal fabrication shop, a metal finishing shop, and then ultimately we ended up at Harley Davidson, which was really cool. So we saw the manufacturing process of making a motorcycle. These kids were seniors. They were fully capable of self-regulation. And so a field trip like this was in order. It was a wonderful experience. But it really depends certainly on the teacher and the guidelines that you set on day 1, but also are the kids ready for it and to what extent. Okay, so how to define self-directed learning. Here's what I've got. This is the best quote that I could come up with. The educator's role is to guide and support. Students will explore the world around them, they'll investigate, they'll form their questions and what they're researching, and then they test it and see if they were successful or not in the learning outcome. If they weren't, you help them as a teacher backtrack to a point at which maybe they got off track a little bit, and then they proceed again. And it's really kind of a neat process. Okay. So what self-directed learning is not? So sometimes I feel like I can learn more about what something is by finding out what it isn't. Well, this is what it isn't. And thankfully, these aren't pictures of my classroom. In fact, if I have any drawback, it's sometimes that things get a little too excited. But self-directed learning is not boring. It's not a snoozer. Kids are fired up and they're ready to learn. Okay. So what else self-directed learning is not? It is not chaos, and I just alluded to that. So it's not kids going crazy and out of control. They are focused on the learning outcome. They may have set that learning outcome, and you as a teacher are guiding them. What I like, it's a real active phase for a teacher, so you're moving about the room and checking things out and making sure that the students are on track. But ultimately, it's a fun, exciting, energetic, but contained and focused activity, if you will. Okay. Alfie Cohen, I think that's how you pronounce it, Cohen, is the theorist that was tied to self-directed learning for this particular project. So wanted to introduce Alfie real quick. And this is from alfiecohen.org. So I'm assuming it's accurate. Alfie lives in Boston, has 2 adult children. There's some cute pictures of him with his kids when they were younger, which is kind of neat. Alfie is a big critic of education's fixation of grades and test scores, and I am a teacher coming to you who has taught advanced placement, or AP, has taught international baccalaureate, or IB, and if there aren't ever high stakes on tests, it's going to be IB and AP. And why is it so huge? Well, because if you get a passing grade on an IB test or AP, you get to pass out of college classes. And every college class, every 3-credit college class that you pass out of, you will save, I kid you not, 60 to 90 hours of time. That's amazing. So I can sell kids on getting motivated simply because of all the time that they can save at school. You can use time for working out, for eating, for sleeping, for watching TV, or whatever you want to do, right? So high stakes. There's also money involved as well, scholarships, ACTs, that sort of thing. Well, Alfie Cohen is a critic of those because you can strive for those, and ultimately what he says is teach as much as you need to the test if you must. And then the rest should be about learning and the learning process and obtaining functional skills. Alfie also says standards should be a guideline, but not a checklist. And so as teachers, of course, we're putting together a syllabus and, well, we've got to make sure we cover that standard and this standard. And those are great, and AP and IB hand down standards too, but there's so much learning to do. So when I taught advanced placement US government, we were in the middle of an election cycle for president one year, and we didn't have necessarily the time to talk about the election, which is horrendous. So if you're supposed to be learning about politics and government and it's happening in front of you and you can't discuss it, it's probably something a little wrong with the system. So you've really got to try to balance it as much as you can as a teacher. You can only do so much, but you try. All right, there's a picture of Alfie. He looks like an Alfie. And that's not a bad thing, but I saw his picture. I said, yeah, that looks like an Alfie. All right. So he wrote some books. He wrote a lot of books. I'm going to just point out 2 of them because it'll tell you a lot about the man and his theory with the self-directed learning by the title. So he's got one called No Contest, the Case Against Competition. And what he is saying is quit having kids compete against each other in school, in the classroom, for the grade. Who's going to get the A? You know, who's going to get the 4-point? And in our school, we actually weight classes. So if you're IB, AP, you can be on a 5-point scale. And sometimes the kids, if you're ready for this, and some of you may have heard of this, sometimes kids won't take a class because it's not weighted. Because if they get an A, they get a 4-point, it hurts their grade point. My kids are in that same situation. My son and my daughter. It's horrible. So the kids should be able to take what they want to take to build their skills and their knowledge base and all that stuff. And maybe they don't take a class that they're interested in because it's not weighted. Very, very sad. So competition versus others. He's saying throw it out. Competition with yourself, that's another story. Trying to maximize your God-given potential. Okay. Punished by rewards is another one. So I'm an incentive-based guy. I was a commissioned salesperson, actually vice president of sales at a small recruiting firm for 11 years. It was commission based. If we didn't sell, I didn't make any money. That's a pretty darn good incentive. I also had my own fitness business for 7 years, did fitness at people's homes. I only made money if I sold, right? So huge incentives. Life is full of incentives and rewards. Alfie is saying maybe not the best way to push kids in terms of school. All right, so A's and praise and gold stars and all that stuff. He's talking about intrinsic, meaning inside of me, I want to do well at this because I want to do well at this, not because of that extrinsic or external thing out there. Okay, moving on. Student-directed learning, Alfie Cohen quotes. I think this is a great way to learn somebody's philosophy, okay? This picture is, goes this way. This picture, few guys working on a small group project in one of my classes. All right, so Alfie says learning is more important than the product. So in other words, it's not so much the outcome, but the performance. We focus on that because I coach gentlemen's and ladies tennis here at Catholic Memorial. We have good programs, one of the top programs in the state in terms of wins and losses, but really our focus, we do community service work, we make sure that we have good teamwork, we don't cut, so it's all inclusive. Those to me are the most important things, and I think if you see the process as being important, how you do things, the outcomes still are good, and you're a much better person for it. Okay. The act of learning is ideally its own reward, so it's not about the extrinsic, it's the learning is the reward itself. And it's okay to make mistakes. And as a teacher, put your kids in situations where they're making mistakes. Back in my day when we took a test, we bombed it, it was over. All right, if we did a project, we bombed it, it was over. Nowadays, they give test retakes. And some parents will say, hey, that's a bunch of baloney. They're not going to get that in college. Well, it does offer an opportunity for students to improve, to get better, to evaluate themselves, make a mistake, and get better. And a lot of parents try to shield their kids from making mistakes. That's a bad situation. Failure is a wonderful way to learn. If you need to hear some stories, just call me. In my almost 50 years on earth, I've made plenty of mistakes, plenty of failures, and I am better for that. Okay, so student-directed learning. In my experience, just some quick things from me. It's an inexact science. And it's so inexact that my first few years I was terrible at it in the classroom. Year 4 and 5 I was okay. After the class of 2017 graduated the last 3 years, it is amazing how smooth the classes go. I'm handing more and more responsibility off to the students, letting them direct things. They are self-managing in the class. It's beautiful. I can even step out of my classroom for a minute or two, come back in, everyone's working. If I walk into class, say I'm talking to a student out in the hallway and I walk in a minute late, which I don't normally like to do, they're all sitting down, talking quietly, ready to roll. And then when we do get on our project and so forth, they know how to communicate with each other. But I was terrible at that the first few years. Students seek to self-regulate. They enjoy it if you give them the opportunity. As student personalities go, you can't give certain amount of leeway to some students or classes versus others. Sometimes there's a tough mix of kids, and it's just not going to happen. I've had business classes that were exact same curriculum, exact same class. One meets first hour, one meets 8th hour, and I have to teach those differently or approach those differently because they simply interact with each other differently. Also, the self-directed aspect needs to be established on day one. Show respect to your students. Start handing off responsibility to them right away. Ask them questions and let them lead right away. And if they're getting too far out of the boundaries, then you reel them in. And that's something I think as a teacher that, unfortunately, after year 5, I got a lot better at. Okay, the teacher needs to guide early and often. So it's very active. You know, if you got to drink a little coffee in the morning to be ready to rock, that is really important. If the teacher is just having a bad day, you're not getting sleep or what have you, it's tough to do this. Self-directed learning environment. Here's a study showed that emotional creativity and achievement motivation, so wanting to do well, were the biggest contributors to successful self-directed learning. So emotional creativity, give them leeway to think and dream and brainstorm and come up with concepts and ideas. Achievement motivation. Let me tell you what I think is the best theory on motivation. Pink's theory, we teach this in our business class as part of the IB curriculum. 3 things have to be involved in order for employees, or in our case, students, to be motivated. Autonomy, give them freedom to work alone or with classmates. You're not hanging over them, telling them exactly what to do. Second thing, mastery. Start from where they are now. So there should be some level of competency. And if you're giving your students projects and so forth that are beyond their level of competency, they're not going to have a mastery of it, and it's not going to go well. Their efficacy will be in the toilet. So start from where they are now, evaluate where they are, and let them build from there. And then finally, it should have purpose. There should be meaning. It's not just busy work. Why are we doing this? I tried to tell them the learning outcome at the beginning of the class, as well as, and here's why this is important. This is why it's going to help you in real life. And in business, it's pretty easy to do in business classes because everything you do will apply at some point to business. The picture of the ladies above us, the woman in the middle actually started selling macarons at our cafe that we started and our business kids run. And I think she made like $800 in a semester, which was crazy. I don't know if she reported it on her taxes, so don't tell anyone that. Okay, moving on. So student-directed learning techniques, and this I got off the internet. So multiple activity centers with various classroom structures for group work. So multiple activities, dynamic working environments. Display your student projects. If they make some things that are cool, maybe they make a magazine ad or a website or something like that, print it out, put it on the wall, put it in the hallway. Students constantly engaging ideas, communicating, super important with the collaboration. Moving on, respectful teacher mingling with students. So be active, be involved as a teacher. It's fun. It's no fun sitting at your desk grading stuff while the kids are working on things. Walk around, mingle with them. It's awesome. The kids are great. Students should be excited about the activity, and I always say if you make it relevant or make it interesting, and they will ask a lot of questions, be there for them. Don't be sarcastic with your answers, be straightforward. The kids just want to learn, they really do. Multiple activities occurring at the same time, and that can get a little crazy, but if you've got small group work going on, it's pretty cool. All right, above is some students working with the gentleman right above me, runs a photo business, and they're helping him with his marketing plans via the internet. All right, additional benefits, self-directed learning and ADHD. I thought this was an interesting study. So they found that there's a connection between self-directed teaching and how well the ADHD students do in terms of executive functioning. I threw this picture here, the young lady right above me with the donut. We were actually on a field trip. They handed out donuts. It was an auto paint store, or auto paint facility. And it was pretty cool, actually. They learned the process of doing that. So we learned a lot of things on our field trips. But she has major dyslexia. We worked with it. And a lot of the project-based stuff, she was really, really good at. She thrived on it. If it was lecture and regurgitate, she was terrible. Taking notes was tough, all that stuff. So she was very good at being self-directed. She ended up getting a full ride to St. Thomas in Minnesota, which is pretty neat. So virtual learning and how that ties into self-directedness. Significant relationship between self-directed readiness and online learning achievement. Well, boy, does that hit. I'm going to try getting my classes self-directed as soon as I can. August 17th, because we could be going 100% virtual 2 weeks later. I don't know what's going to happen. So I thought this was a relevant tie-in, particularly with the COVID-19 situation. The key interactions are teacher to student, student to student, student to topic, all those things. Get them active right away. Disadvantages of self-directed learning. It's difficult to form intrinsic motivation, so from the inside, like that Pink's theory that I talked about. The teacher needs to be trained and capable. I think if you're a rookie, do it. It's okay for you to fail as well, but it may be something that you don't do quite as much, you don't see opportunities to do, but every year you'll learn. Use the summers to, evaluate your lessons, to redo your lessons, take what the students said worked really well, the things that didn't work well, throw out or change. Students may lack previous training, and if they don't come in ready for this sort of thing, it can be tough. So start again from where they are now, whether it's here or up here, depending on the year and the class. High stakes testing, we talked about it. I mean, if you have to teach the test, there's only so much you can do with self-directed. There are techniques you can use, but again, you're going to be under pressure. Test as much as, or teach as much as you have to the test. And then what Cohen says is teach them learning functional skills that they're going to need in life above and beyond that. The students that are above me, they are from China. Unfortunately, some of them had to stay back because they didn't know if they didn't go back home to China because of the COVID-19 situation. They didn't know if they'd get visas back into the country. Very sad for them. Wonderful kids. But this can be tough because they don't come from a culture of self-directed work. It's very much dished out and regurgitated. I get kids from South Korea as well, same situation. It's not that kind of learning environment at all. So it takes a little getting used to for them. Okay, so I was supposed to interject some examples. I've already mentioned a few, but one that we do at the end of the year, and this is for our HL, our higher level kids, our second year IB business students, and I just instituted this, and it's great, and they love it, and it's self-directed. These kids are 18 years old, going off to college or going off to work or the military, but they're grown-ups. So it's a small group of 2 to 3 students. This group ended up having 4, and I'll explain it in a second. They choose a business, create a business plan. I walk around, I will check them, we'll have checkpoints. This is over a 3-week process just to see how they're doing, but they're really on their own with this. And I'm just there to kind of guide them. We actually did this online, virtually, during the COVID situation, and it could not have worked out better. They got together online. They all said that people contributed at least enough in their group. There weren't, 2 slackers and then 1 person doing all the work. So it worked out really well. Now, this governor's business plan competition template is what we use. If any of you want that, I will get that to you. Just email me. But the kids above me, first of all, they got the crosses on their head because it's Ash Wednesday, but they made it all the way to the governor's business plan competition semifinals. Now, it starts with about 170 real businesses. Like, these are all grown-ups. We were the only high school entered. Everyone else was either in college or most of them were out of college. Could have been my age. And they were proposing businesses. And if you won this, you got a certain amount of money and all that. Well, we made the semis, so we made the top 28 of the 170 businesses, and they actually put together the plan of an invention that was through our STEM students, which was really neat. So we worked with them, and those kids actually got full rides to MSOE because of their invention. Then these kids went ahead and did the governor's business plan competition. It was really cool. Again, if you have questions, email me and I'll hook you up. Real quickly, because I know I'm running out of time, this is one aspect of the template. It's 12 pages. What they end up making is usually 15 to 20 pages. But you can see market description, market research, all that fun stuff. I just took a clip of it. Here's another one. This is capital or funding requests. So what's your current financing? What money do you need? They have to figure all that out, and I'm there just to guide them through. All right. So second, that's a self-directed learning example number, I should say 2. All right. JA Business Challenge, JA is Junior Achievement. So they have a hologram. It's a fake product. It doesn't exist, but it's a hologram product that they have to build, okay? And they build it virtually, and then they try to sell it, and they compete with other hologram products as they're selling it. So they research all the rules. I give them some guidelines, but they research all the rules. Then they research strategies on how much to produce per quarter, how much to spend on marketing, research, and then how much to spend on advertising, and then ultimately research and development. Are they going to have a product that is, the Cadillac of holograms, or I'm not going to insult anybody, but a real basic model car with no frills? That are they going to sell a hologram? That's, I guess, that level of prestige. So they have to decide that right away. Then they come in, they compete against the computer, they learn from it, make mistakes, get better. Then they compete with their classmates. And then I get to send 2 to 3 teams a year to the competition against other schools. For some reason, Greenfield High School keeps winning it. I don't know why. I've told my kids to make friends with the kids at Greenfield and figure out what's going on. We have not yet. But we did have a third place finish. Now you can see the guys over here, the far side, with some certificates, and they got some cool prizes and stuff. It's a wonderful event. If you're interested in the Junior Achievement event, Briggs & Stratton hosts it. Highly recommend it. The picture here is a group of kids that we took through the Briggs & Stratton Research Lab, which normally they don't let people in, but you can see all the prototypes of different machines that they have. Really, really cool. So those are just two things where in my programs that the kids are self-directed. All right, so to conclude, this is the goal, and it's not going to be every day, but as many times as you can, start giving off the autonomy and responsibility to your students. Let them come up with the parameters for an assignment. It's really cool. We do a number of these. I only wanted to go over a few examples, but it's a fun classroom for a student and a teacher. It's got lots of energy. There's lots of learning. What's really neat is they come up with functional skills that they can apply when they get a job someday, if they don't have one already. So it's functional skills for life. And then right above me is a picture of our cafe that is open in the mornings. I wish it was more. I wish we offered more products, but it's hot coffee, iced coffee, hot chocolate, and then if somebody brings in food, then we'll sell food and so forth. But that's another thing that's self-directed. The kids run it. It's really great. They manage the money and the inventory and all that stuff. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. It's a fun and powerful way to get the kids excited about what you're doing and ultimately balance the teaching to the test to having fun and learning what you need to learn in life. Thanks, guys. And here are the references, and that is it. Have a great day.